In order to use DDtrac, you need to be able to set up students within the system as well as users to work with those students. You can also set up groups if you're going to be taking data for groups of students. In order to set up sites, groups, and students in DDtrac, you go to the Administer Site tab. Under Administer Site, you have several options. The first option is really to manage your organization, which is what we're going to be talking about today. You can manage your students, your groups and courses, your users, and your sites. Under the Manage Students, you see a list of all of your active students, and you also can show archive students. These are students that used to be active at your organization, but for some reason you're no longer taking data on them. When you purchase a subscription for DDtrac, that says how many active students you are allowed to have in the system. In this case, I can see that I can add new student data, which means that I have not reached my maximum number of active students in DDtrac. If I click Add New Student Data, I can give the student an ID. That would be a student ID that I'm using within my current data system. Give the student a name. Let's go with John J. Doe. And you have to give him a site attending. For most people, if you only have one active site, you'll only have one choice in this drop-down list. If you work with a school district, however, you might have several schools that you have DDtrac operational for, and so you could choose one of the schools that you're going to have John work at. Active specifies whether or not he's currently an active student. When you're creating a new student, usually you'll be making the student active. You also have the option of setting up users to work with the student. So you can give users either read permission, which means they can only read student data but not change it, data entry permission, which allows them to take data for the student but not edit student goals and objectives, or edit permission, which allows them to take data, read, and edit student data, edit their goals, and edit their objectives. And when I click Update Student, I see the data that I just entered. The system ID is the student's ID within DDtrac, so that's just an internal number we use to refer to the student. Once you create the student, you can edit a variety of data for the student. Personal data is demographics. If I hit Edit Student Details, because I haven't really provided any of this, I could give the student a separate state ID if we have separate state IDs. I could give the student a gender, male, ethnicity, he's Hispanic, birth date, contact phone and email, I could enter that. Primary language, let's say his primary language was English, and his home language, though, is Spanish. You can specify the primary and secondary disability. So let's say his primary disability is ADHD. You can put in his student's address, city, and you can add a person at this address. So if he has parents living at the address, you could add parents. You could add a guardian if you want to keep track of guardian data. Once you update your student details, now you can see you have additional personal information. You can add placement information for the student. So if I go and I edit this for the student, for example, I could say that I am the case manager and they go to LPS, which is my school district. School of residence is the same as school of attendance, so I can say demo center. Grade level is, let's say, 3rd grade. RTI tier, he's in RTI Tier 2, he's in a secondary intervention. Setting, he's regularly classed at least 80% of the time. He attends school 180 days a year. And then I can set service type, and I could say he receives speech therapy. So let's start the therapy last year, and then it would end this year. And the number of hours that he gets in the general classroom, which would be half an hour a week. You can give him an IEP date. His next IDP date is coming up, and you can do your enrollments, transition services, which would be inappropriate to set for a student this young, whether or not he receives special transportation, he receives individual education services, and other deep data about the student's placement. Now that's part of the student's record. Users, this just shows the users that have permission to access the student's data, and I could edit those permissions right now. Groups would be any groups that the student's a member of. So I could say I want to make John a member of Classroom 1. Emergency contact data, I could add emergency contact data for the student. For instance, give a first name, last name, and this would say, I'm looking to see if Jane Doe already exists in the system. She does not. So I'll go next and I'll add her, Jane again. Doe, for Demo Center, she's not a user, she's just a parent, and I'm going to give her a phone number, an email address, and I finish that up. And I could put her at address. I'm going to put her at the same address as the student, and she's the mother of the student. And then I could add other contacts. I could say whether or not the student's Medicaid eligible. I could provide the doctor's information, hospital information, and any emergency health notes that, like if the student's on medication, if the student's allergic to bee stings, anything that would be important to keep as a part of the student's permanent record. And then I update student emergency information. Under personal, I could upload a picture for the student. So I'm going to browse and I'm going to locate an image on my personal computer. So I browse to my student images folder and I say that I want to upload a picture of student 4, and I upload the file, and then I save or update the student details, and you can then see a picture of the student on their student record. You can also update users. You can add a new user or edit a user. When I go and look at Daisy Duck, who's one of my users, you can see the basic information about Daisy Duck, what administrative privileges, whether or not she can administer sites to add users and students, her first name, her last name. I can change her password. If she forgets her password here, I can give her a temporary password so she can log into the system and then update her password herself. The site, what her role is, and this would just be her role within the organization, and that's just useful to other people trying to use DDtrac. When she starts, if I give her an end date, that will actually terminate her employment as of that date, and she will no longer be able to log into DDtrac after that date. This is the list of students she's allowed to work with and her permissions for them, the groups that she's assigned to, and then I can set up any contact information, her phone number, her address. So that's really how to set up students and users within DDtrac.